Hi again, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and this is the Good Timekeeping Show with Greg Anderson. Today, I'm in the family playhouse, and I want to talk about all these watches in this box right here, because these all do the same things. I'm going to say they're the same functions for all of these watches. Maybe not the same features, because the displays and the colors and the materials are a little bit different on all of these. But what I'm going to try to demonstrate here is that when you press the same buttons on all of these watches, they will do the same thing. So if you're familiar with any one of these watches, you can basically figure out how to operate all of them. Only exception here, just slight difference, this right here. This is the GXW56 watch. This does not have a dedicated button for the backlight. All these other ones do. But this one here does not have a dedicated button for the backlight. Therefore, it's going to be just ever so slightly different. But I'll show you how quickly you can discover that it really does all the same things. There's one different button combination to make it do a thing. And then this one here, this is the same watch, the GXW56, that I modified with a third-party bezel and bracelet to make it metal. But basically, it's the same. So let me just review these watches really quickly here. These watches are all variations of the GWM500 and GWM530 module 3405. Some of these are duplicates, as you can see there, but I basically have 6 different ones. And out of these, you can actually find this one at a lot of local Walmart stores for under $100, and this one also you can find at some local Walmart stores for less than $100 here in the United States. So that's one that I'm going to talk about, and I'll narrow it down. Let's just use this one as our example as I compare them. Now for these watches here, we're talking about the GW2310 and the GW2320. They use the same module 3195, so I'll just use one of these as an example to show you how they work. Next to those, a very popular style of G-Shock. This is the GW6900, module 3179. Right here, you're looking at the MTG M900, both in a positive display version and a negative display version. This one is a little bit more difficult to find, but you can actually find this one at your local Walmart for under $100, depending on where you shop. But I've seen these at Walmart stores. So if you wanted to go down, find one, and walk out of the store wearing it today, you could probably do that one as well. Less than $100. Did I mention that? Sure. Then, of course, some people like to call this one the G-Shock King, the GXW56 module 3220, and so we'll look at this one as well. So let me just take one example of each module and line them up right now. And let's talk about what these watches can do. So first of all, they're all showing the correct time synchronized right down to the second, because each of these has a built-in radio receiver for multiband 6. That's Casio's way of having this. Each of these watches receive atomic time information from any of 6 transmitters in different parts of the world. So here in the United States, it's WWVB that these can receive overnight and set themselves. But in other parts of the world, there are other atomic time transmitters. There are 2 in Japan, there's 1 in China, 1 in the UK, and 1 in Germany, for a total of 6. So if you live in any of those parts of the world where you can receive with these watches, they're all going to synchronize right down to the second and keep themselves synchronized by checking themselves every night. These watches each also have tough solar, so there's a solar cell built into the face of each watch, and that keeps the rechargeable power cell charged up inside each of these watches with just average lighting of your everyday living experience. You should have enough light to keep the batteries topped off on these, and they'll go well more than a decade without ever having to change the battery. So you don't have to set the time, don't have to change the battery. Sounds great. Okay, other features, and let's see what they'll do here, and I'll show you how they all do it the same way. If I press this button here marked reverse from the normal timekeeping screen, I'll do that on each of these watches, and it will show you the local time plus a world time zone you've selected. In this case, it's UTC on each of these watches. So at the same time, local time plus that other time zone. This one uses the opposite button here over there, and it will do the same trick. Local time plus your other time zone selected that way there. Now, if I were to press the button to go ahead to the next mode, then you can see that they each go to the same mode, and that is the mode where you actually select which other time zone you want to be your other, world time zone. So you can use the forward button to, as though you're going eastward on the map, and select other time zones, and each of those watches do the same thing by pressing the same corresponding buttons. Okay, but if I switch modes to the next mode, then the next mode is the alarm mode and also the hourly signal mode. So there are 5 alarms plus an hourly signal, and one of the alarms is a snooze alarm, so that one will actually repeat up to half an hour after the first time it goes off. So again, you get in the same mode, press that mode button again, and I'm into the stopwatch mode, and each of these watches has a 24-hour stopwatch. If it goes the full 24 hours, it resets to 0 and keeps on going. The next mode is a countdown timer, and this is up to a 24-hour countdown timer. If it's set to all zeros, it's going to count down a true 24-hour countdown. Otherwise, you can set it to any number of hours and minutes that you want for some other countdown duration. And if I press that mode button one more time, I go right back to the main timekeeping mode. And you see all of those watches are behaving the same way when I switch modes. Now from here, if I wanted to check and see when was the last time a watch was able to receive the atomic time information that it's supposed to receive every night, I just press the forward button, or be the same button on every one of these watches, and it will just report right there the last time it was able to get atomic time information, which was just very, very early this very morning. Normally, these watches would be receiving atomic time information automatically every night, and as soon as they are successful at receiving, they'll stop trying until the next night after midnight. If I wanted to manually initiate atomic time reception, I could press and hold this same forward button here. Let's see if this will work here. I'll hold it long enough. All right, and it initiates the atomic time reception. It's going to try, L1 for level 1. Level 3 is the best, so if I can get it to stabilize at L3, then it will be able to set itself and check itself. Usually reception is better overnight, so in the middle of the afternoon like this, not the best time to do that, but each one of these watches would initiate atomic time reception the same way, using the same combination of buttons. If I'm on this default timekeeping mode here and I want to do any of the setups, I would press and hold the adjust button. And if I do that on each one of these watches until I see things are starting to blink, again, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to initially have me set my home time zone. In this case, I live in the Mountain Time Zone, so that's kind of named after Denver. So as you see here, as I go into the adjust screen, first thing it's showing is that they're all set to the Denver time zone. But if I press the mode button, then auto, this is referring to daylight saving time setting. If I want it to automatically change for daylight saving time, I would set it to auto, or that could be off all the time, or it could be showing on all the time for daylight saving time. But I like to have it set for auto. Here is my 12-hour versus 24-hour setting. Again, they all are doing the same thing right here. If I press the mode button once again, this is where I can manually set the time and date. So I can scroll through all of those settings if I wanted to manually set those. But of course, if I were to manually set the time and date to something other than atomic time, then as soon as it has a chance to set itself by receiving atomic time information, it would override my manual setting to whatever the real time happens to be. When I go past this mode, I get to choose whether I want it to make a little sound every time I change modes or press buttons. And that would be right here. If I show you, that would be a key for a sound, or mute if I want it to stay silent when I'm doing most of those button changes. So what happens if it's set for mute, it still makes sounds when an alarm is set to go, or when you're at the end of a countdown timer. But if I would rather have it not make a sound every time I change modes, then I put that into mute. So the next thing I want to adjust after mute is the length of the the backlight duration. It can either be 1.5 seconds or 3 seconds. So this is where you would make that adjustment right here. See, those are all set for that. Next thing here is power save. If I want the power save to be active, then what happens is the watch will start to shut down certain functions after it hasn't been used. For example, every night after 10 p.m., if the watch is in the dark and it's not moving for, say, an hour, then the screen will go blank to save power, and it'll come on again in the morning when the watch is exposed to regular light, or when you press any buttons, or when you kind of start shaking the watch around. And you can see all of these watches do the same thing in that regard. And the only other major setting here, if I go back to my main screen, do I want to have an automatic backlight on any of these watches when I tilt it up towards myself? When the watch is in the dark, it's dark enough, and I tilt it towards myself, do I want that backlight to come on automatically? And if that's what I want, then I just press and hold the light button until I see an indicator on the screen indicating that the automatic backlight has been enabled. It's a little more subtle on this screen, but over here, for example, if I do it on this watch here, you see there's an auto and a little light icon there. That goes away, or if I press and hold that button again, for just a few seconds, it comes back on. And with this one, since the light button is actually the one up here on the upper right, I can see that if I hold this light button down, that where it says AEL will turn off or turn on, depending on, if I've held that button down to activate the automatic backlight. So as you can see, if you know your way around any of these watches, and you like the style of any of these watches, you can use any one you want, and you know how to set them up because they all do the same things with virtually the same button combinations, except this one is the only one that's a little bit different from that. Here we are in the last part of the year 2021, and there are some supply chain issues around the world, but I've found that these watches here are still relatively easy to find. Like I said, you can find this one at Walmart, you can find this one at Walmart, and another color combination up here, you can find that one at Walmart. These, not too difficult to find. I haven't seen them at my local Walmart stores, but you can find them online. They won't cost you that much. This one's a little bit more difficult to find because I think this was a Japanese market exclusive if you want it to look exactly like this. But you can find it through eBay, and I didn't have too much trouble finding one of these. In fact, I found someone who had one. He was in the United States, and he sold it to me through eBay, and it was brand new anyway. So I was able to find that one, even though originally it was only available in Japan. So these are great watches. They all have the great features you would expect from a G-Shock: 200-meter water resistance. Again, the tough solar, and shock resistance, and the atomic timekeeping, and all that stuff here. So you would enjoy any of these, I think, as entry-level G-Shock watches. And I just wanted to show you how they do the same things, and that's kind of fun too. All right, that's enough for now, and I hope you'll join me again soon for another episode of The Good Timekeeping Show.